It's funny. Usually when we talk about making a really critical business investment, like, say, opening up a brand new physical storefront.
Right,
Yeah,
brick and mortar.
exactly.
Hmm.
There's this built-in expectation of just total visibility. Like, you can literally see the foundation being poured.
Right, you can go walk the floor plan.
Yeah. You can go in, inspect the drywall, knock on the wood. It's completely tangible. You know exactly what you're getting.
Because you can actually touch the raw materials before they, paint over them.
But then you step into the world of digital real estate. You finally decide, hey, it's time to build or maybe redesign your business website. And suddenly, poof, that comforting visibility just completely vanishes.
It really does. It becomes a total black box.
Right. You're handing over this massive chunk of your operational budget, and what you get back is often just, well, it's a black box of code. It's a landscape that is incredibly murky for most business owners. You basically just have to blindly trust that the foundation is solid.
And that is the absolute definition of, diagnostic muddy waters. And I think the really terrifying part is that making the wrong foundational choice there, it doesn't just cost you that initial upfront invoice.
Right. It keeps costing you.
Exactly. It costs you every single month in lost conversions, really poor search visibility, and just endless frustrating development delays.
Which brings us to today. Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. We are basically grabbing a flashlight today and walking directly into that black box.
I love that. Let's do it.
We're looking at a really comprehensive guide today titled Elementor Website Design versus Traditional WordPress Development. Which one is right for your business? And, well, okay, let's unpack this. Our mission today is simple. We are going to cut through all that heavy developer jargon.
God knows there's a lot of it.
Oh, tons. We're going to strip away the industry bias and really figure out the actual financial and practical implications of this choice. Because honestly, the last thing you want is to waste time and money on a site that actively works against your growth.
Yeah, a site that just sits there.
Right. And to help connect the dots on why this specific tech choice actually dictates your business trajectory, I am joined by our resident expert. So glad you're here.
I am very glad to be here for this one. It's such a crucial topic. And, to properly set the stage for you today, we really have to recognize a pretty harsh reality. The web has changed dramatically in just the last few years.
Dramatically?
Yeah. The way a top-tier business website is built and consumed, really today, it looks almost entirely unrecognizable from how it was done even in, say, 2020.
Wow, really? Just that recently?
Oh, yeah. Mobile traffic absolutely dominates now. Google's algorithms have become completely ruthless regarding performance and user attention spans. I mean, they've plummeted. So if you're operating on a 5-year-old understanding of web development, you are going to make a very expensive mistake.
And that context right there is exactly why this decision matters so much. So to figure out which path you should actually take, we first need to define the two, let's call them heavyweights, battling for your budget right now.
The main contenders.
Right. So on one side, we have traditional WordPress development. Now, I like to think of this approach kind of like building a high-performance custom car entirely from scratch.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Right, like you aren't just buying parts off a shelf. You are literally machining every single piston and cutting every gear yourself.
Yeah.
In the digital world, that means a developer is writing custom PHP from a totally blank screen.
Hand coding everything.
Hand coding everything. They're styling every pixel with custom CSS, scripting the JavaScript from nothing, building manual child themes. It is incredibly precise. You control every single atom of the car, but man, the labor involved is just staggering.
It is. It's the true old school method. It requires a highly specialized mechanic, or, well, in this case, a hardcore software engineer to do literally anything. The PHP acts as the brains, CSS is the paint job, JavaScript is the engine motion.
And building all three from scratch takes time.
Immense time and immense testing. But now, on the other side of the ring, we have the modern alternative, which is Elementor. It's a visual drag-and-drop page builder for WordPress, and it's currently powering over 12 million websites globally.
12 million. That's a huge footprint.
It's massive, and what's fascinating here is how it fundamentally changes the builder's relationship with the website. It completely removes the need to touch that raw PHP or write custom CSS for every single element you want to place on a page.
So wait, instead of a developer writing 50 lines of code, saving it, uploading it to a server, and then refreshing a browser just to see if a button is, centered in blue,
Yeah.
they just drag a button to the middle of the screen and click a color wheel.
Exactly. That is exactly it. You are working in a real-time visual editor. The builder software is doing the heavy lifting. It's writing that complex code in the background, while the designer manipulates the visual elements on the front end. It offers just immense speed and flexibility.
But, and I know this is a critical caveat, that our source material really emphasizes traditional development is not dead.
Oh, absolutely not. No, it still has a very necessary place in the digital ecosystem.
Right, so we aren't like burying custom code today. There are definitely scenarios where you absolutely have to build that engine from scratch.
100%. You are building a highly complex custom web application, right? Or a software as a service product.
Like a SaaS platform.
Yeah. Or if you have deeply integrated proprietary backend logic, say a highly unique membership platform with really complex user routing and custom security protocols, for things like that, you absolutely still need the traditional hand-coded route. Visual builders are not meant to build the next Airbnb or Spotify.
Okay, that makes total sense. But let's look at who is listening right now. If you are running a B2B firm, a service-based business, maybe an agency portfolio, an e-commerce store, or you're just launching a landing page for a massive ad campaign, you need to hear why the visual approach is very likely the superior option for you. And I think that brings us to the metrics that actually keep business owners awake at night, which are timelines and budgets.
Yeah, the two resources no business ever has enough of.
Right, exactly. And the numbers in our source guide are actually pretty stark. We are looking at professional Elementor builds taking anywhere from just 1 to 4 weeks to go from concept to launch.
Which is incredibly fast.
It is. And they usually sit in the lower to mid-range for upfront costs. But then you look at traditional custom development. You're looking at a 4 to 12-week timeline, minimum, with significantly higher initial costs.
Because you were paying for all those raw developer hours.
Exactly.
And we really have to unpack what that timeline difference actually means for a business. Because it isn't just about, impatience.
Or that's not just wanting it now.
No.
Yeah.
In a fast-moving market, saving 2 months on a web launch means 2 extra months of generating leads. It means 2 extra months of making sales and 2 extra months of your new pages aging and ranking on Google. The opportunity cost of a 3-month development cycle is just massive.
Okay, wait, hold on. I have to play devil's advocate here for a second. Because if I'm a business owner listening to this, my alarm bells are kind of ringing right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
If I am getting a website in a fraction of the time, and the designer is basically just dragging and dropping these pre-built widgets around a screen, doesn't that just mean I am getting a really generic cookie-cutter template? Like, are we just slapping my corporate logo on the exact same layout 1,000 other companies are using just to save a few bucks?
See, that is the most common fear, and honestly, it is a complete myth.
Really?
A complete myth. Total myth. It stems from a basic misunderstanding of what a modern visual builder actually is. When we talk about Elementor, specifically the Pro version, in the hands of actual design professionals, they have absolute granular control over the design system. We are talking custom fonts, global brand color palettes, incredibly advanced motion effects, scroll animations.
Well, the source also mentioned something called ACF integration. How does that factor into the customization?
Ah, yes. So ACF stands for Advanced Custom Fields. And it is the perfect example to completely debunk this whole cookie-cutter myth.
Okay, walk me through it.
Let's say you run a real estate firm, right? And you have 500 property listings. In a cheap cookie-cutter template, you'd have to manually build 500 separate rigid pages.
Which sounds awful.
It's a nightmare. But with Elementor and ACF, you build one single, beautifully custom-designed visual shell. Just one. Then the database automatically pushes the unique data, the square footage, the price, the image gallery. It pushes all that into that one shell for all 500 properties.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It is dynamic, it's highly complex, and it is visually indistinguishable from a site that took 3 months to hand code. It's a completely custom design. It is just built on a much more efficient structural framework.
Okay, I see. So if the final product looks totally custom, and the time save isn't from cutting design corners or using these rigid templates, where does that massive time saving actually come from?
It comes from the complete elimination of friction in the workflow.
Friction? Like what?
Well, let's look at the traditional workflow. A developer writes the code, saves the file, uploads it via FTP, clears the server cache, refreshes their browser, and then realizes, oh, the text looks wrong on a mobile screen.
So they have to do it all over again.
Exactly. They go back to the code, adjust the mathematical responsive breakpoints, save it, upload it, refresh again. It is a highly fragmented, incredibly tedious process.
And a visual editor just bypasses all of that.
Entirely. The designer sees the changes instantly. There's no guessing. They can toggle between desktop, tablet, and mobile views with a single click and just adjust the layout in real time. The time is saved because the workflow itself is fluid, not because they're sacrificing the quality of the output.
So it's kind of like being able to paint directly on the canvas instead of having to write out like mathematical coordinates for where the paint should go and then waiting an hour for a machine to process it just to see if it landed in the right spot.
That is exactly it. You are removing that clunky translation layer between the idea and the execution.
Okay, I buy that. It makes sense. It's faster, it's cheaper to build, and it looks totally custom. But, and this is a but if we are talking about automated tools, writing code in the background, we have to talk about the dragon in the room.
Ah, yes, the performance issue.
Right. The biggest criticism I hear about visual builders, and the guide tackles this head on, by the way, is the dreaded code bloat.
Yeah.
Because if a machine is guessing how to translate a visual drag-and-drop action into HTML, isn't that code inherently messy? Like, critics swear the visual builders inject so much unnecessary garbage into the backend that it destroys your website's performance, ruins your SEO, and just makes your load times crawl.
That is exactly the assumption most traditional developers make. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that historically, say maybe 5 or 6 years ago, that criticism was entirely valid.
But they weren't just making it up.
Not at all. Early page builders were clunky. They suffered from what developers called div soup.
Div soup.
Yeah, it's basically where they would wrap every single piece of text or image in like 10 layers of unnecessary code just to make the drag and drop function actually work. And the browsers had to read all that junk and it just slowed everything down.
So why is our source guide claiming this is no longer an issue today?
Because modern Elementor is an entirely different beast. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the underlying architecture of the web has evolved, and Elementor's architecture has been completely rewritten to match. When you see a slow Elementor site today, it is almost never a flaw in the builder itself.
What is it then?
It is user error. It's someone uploading a massive, uncompressed 10-megabyte photo right from their digital camera, or, stacking 30 unnecessary plugins on top of each other.
The guide actually gives us an optimization playbook for how a lean, lightning-fast site is built today. And the first point is a shift from legacy sections to something called container-based flexbox layouts. For the non-developers listening, what does that actually mean?
Okay, think of it like packing boxes in a moving truck. The old way those legacy sections was incredibly inefficient. It was like putting a small lamp inside a tiny box, then putting that tiny box inside a medium box, and putting that inside a giant wooden crate.
Just a ton of wasted space.
Exactly. It took up way too much room and added unnecessary weight, and the browser had to basically open every single box just to display the lamp. Flexbox containers, on the other hand, are like custom-fit shrink wrap.
Oh, I like that visual.
Yeah. It groups elements together in the tightest, most streamlined way possible. It drastically reduces the amount of invisible structural code the browser actually has to load.
Shrink wrapping the code.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. The guide also claims you can eliminate this bloat entirely if you optimize your media correctly, specifically mentioning WebP formats and lazy loading. How is that actually done in practice?
Well, WebP is just a modern image format. It provides really high-quality visuals at a fraction of the file size of an old JPEG or PNG. But lazy loading that is the real magic trick.
How so?
Usually, when someone clicks your link, their browser tries to download the entire website top to bottom before letting them interact with it. Lazy loading stops that. It tells the browser, hey, only load the images that are currently visible on the screen right now.
As they scroll.
Exactly. As the user scrolls down, it loads the rest just in time. It drastically cuts down that initial loading time.
Wow. And then there is caching. The guide mentions pairing the builder with performance plugins like WP Rocket or Lightspeed Cache.
Right. Caching is incredibly powerful. Imagine if every time a customer asked to see your restaurant menu, you forced your chef to write it out by hand from memory.
It would take forever. The customer would just leave.
Exactly. Caching is like taking a high-definition photograph of your finished web page and just handing that picture to the visitors. It stops the server from having to dynamically rebuild the entire page from scratch every single time someone clicks your link.
That is brilliant. Okay, so you've used Flexbox, you've optimized your images, you've implemented caching, and you've launched this lightning-fast site. It completely satisfies Google's strictest core web vitals. But a business website isn't a static painting, right? It's a living
It
document.
has to be, yeah.
Right. So what happens when your marketing team needs to change the hero image at 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon? This brings me to one of my absolute favorite analogies from looking at the differences between these two paths. Traditional development is basically a landlord relationship.
Oh, I love that. Expand on that. How so?
Well, think about it. You own the business, you own the domain name, but the developer holds all the keys to the house.
Yep.
Every single time you want to paint a wall or swap out the homepage banner for a holiday sale or even just fix a typo in a service description, you have to call the landlord. You have to submit a support ticket, wait 3 days for them to get to it, and pay a $150 hourly fee just to change a paragraph of text.
And that creates a massive, paralyzing bottleneck for any growing business. If your marketing team wants to run a flash sale, right, or A/B test a new headline, but they have to wait 3 weeks for a developer to hand code a landing page, you miss the market opportunity entirely.
You're completely stalled.
Clients feel totally stuck. They bought a Ferrari, but they aren't allowed to actually hold the steering wheel.
Which is exactly where the post-launch power dynamic completely flips when you use a visual builder.
It does. Elementor hands the keys back to the business owner. Because the back end is a visual editor, anyone on your team, even if they have absolutely zero technical background and don't know a single line of HTML, they can just log in.
And just click and type.
Yeah, they can click right on a text box and type a new headline. They can swap an image. They can even add totally new sections using pre-designed locked templates that maintain your brand guidelines.
And they can do it without the terrifying fear of accidentally deleting a semicolon and breaking the entire layout of the page.
Exactly. It completely severs that expensive long-term dependency on a developer for basic day-to-day content management. Your marketing team can actually move at the speed of the market.
But let me challenge that scalability for a second. Because, look, it sounds great for a local bakery swapping out their workery menu, right? But won't a rapidly growing enterprise eventually hit a ceiling? Like if you start scaling up, expanding into a national market, do you have to tear the whole visual site down and go back to traditional coding?
It's a very valid concern, but the source explicitly addresses this, and the answer is no, you don't hit a ceiling. Elementor isn't just for small brochure sites. It fully supports robust e-commerce environments. We are talking WooCommerce stores managing thousands of individual SKUs, complex shopping cart flows, dynamic pricing models.
And what about integrating with other business software? Because if you are a mid-size B2B company, you definitely don't want your team manually copying and pasting web leads from email into a spreadsheet and then manually typing them into your sales software.
Precisely. And that is where heavy API integrations come into play. A well-built Elementor site can seamlessly connect to customized CRMs like Salesforce or HubSpot or really complex third-party booking engines.
So it's totally automated.
Completely. When a lead fills out a form, the API automatically routes that data exactly where it needs to go while you sleep. You don't outgrow the platform, you just leverage its deeper architectural capabilities.
So if we accept all of this, if this tool is an incredibly user-friendly drag-and-drop magic wand that allows for easy editing, scales beautifully, and avoids code bloat, we run into a really obvious question. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, let's hear it.
Why in the world shouldn't you just buy a software license this afternoon, watch a YouTube tutorial, and build the whole thing yourself? If it's just dragging and dropping, why do you need an agency at all?
Ah, yes. The classic DIY trap. It is incredibly tempting, especially for bootstrap startups. But here's the nuance that most people miss. Visual builders are incredibly easy to start with, but they are exceptionally hard to master.
Like learning to play chess.
Right. To use your earlier car analogy, just because you can walk into an auto parts store and buy the wrenches and the spark plugs doesn't mean you actually know how to build a transmission that won't explode on the highway.
That is a very good point. And to illustrate this difference between a hobbyist and a professional, the source guide uses a specific agency as a case study. A specialist web design firm called Viral Chili.
Yes.
They use them to demonstrate this canyon-sized gap in quality and strategy.
Right. When a hobbyist builds a site, they are essentially just dragging widgets around a screen until it looks subjectively okay to them. But when a professional agency like Viral Chili takes the exact same software, they are doing something entirely different. The guide makes a great distinction. They aren't building a digital brochure or a static billboard. They are building a digital growth engine.
Now, that phrase, digital growth engine, it sounds a little bit like corporate marketing speak. What does that actually mean in practice? Let's unpack the cliche. What is a professional doing that the DIR doesn't even know they are missing?
Well, a standard website is just a billboard. People look at it, maybe note the phone number, and move on. A growth engine is more like a highly engineered mousetrap, and it's designed using behavioral psychology.
Psychology.
Oh, heavily. It starts with strategic UX, or user experience design. Professionals aren't just guessing where to put a button because it looks pretty. They're analyzing human behavior. They're utilizing eye tracking studies and mapping out the exact F pattern that a visitor's eye naturally follows on a screen. Every headline placement, every color contrast, it's all engineered to subconsciously guide a casual visitor toward becoming a paying lead.
And it goes much deeper into the invisible technical architecture too, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. A DIR rarely knows how to implement true technical SEO. An agency, on the other hand, is building out the schema markup. Yeah, schema is basically translating your website into the native language of Google search bots. It tells them exactly what your business does so you rank higher. They are building XML sitemaps, configuring that server-level caching we talked about earlier, and conducting really rigorous cross-device testing.
Because phones come in a million different sizes now.
Exactly. A DIY site often looks totally fine on the owner's large laptop screen, but then it completely shatters when a customer tries to open it on, like, a 3-year-old Android phone.
So for you listening right now, how do you know if you are currently caught in this trap? How do you know if your current site is just a broken billboard instead of a high-converting mousetrap? Well, the guide outlines 5 glaring red flags that basically scream your site is actively hurting your business and requires a professional intervention.
The first one is entirely visual. Your site simply looks outdated. If your layout feels like a template from 2019, visitors notice.
They definitely do.
The market has moved on, and subconsciously, you look like a company that isn't innovating or keeping up with industry standards.
Right. And the second flag is technical. Poor Google page speed scores. If you are listening right now, you can actually go run your URL through Google's free speed test. If it is slow to load, Google will actively penalize your search rankings and your customers. They will hit the back button before your logo even finishes appearing.
It's true. The third flag is behavioral. High bounce rates. This means visitors are landing on your site and immediately leaving without clicking a single link. It is a massive indicator that your messaging is confusing or your layout isn't immediately capturing their exact pain point.
Which is frustrating. Now, the fourth flag is one you can test right now. Pull up your site on your phone. Are you constantly zooming in just to read the text? Are your thumbs too big to hit the contact button? That clunky mobile layout is burning money, especially considering over half of all web traffic is happening on smartphones right now.
It's unbelievable how many sites still fail that test. And the final flag is missing conversion elements. If you don't have clear, frictionless lead forms, compelling calls to action, or strategically placed trust signals, like client testimonials and security badges, you might be getting traffic, but you aren't converting that traffic into actual revenue.
If you are nodding your head to even one or two of those flags, you are leaving money on the table every single day. And that is really the core of why the source highlights an agency like Viral Chili as their benchmark.
Yes, the guide frames them as basically representing the ultimate sweet spot of this entire discussion. A professional agency takes the speed, the cost efficiency, and the client control of Elementor, and they pair it with deep conversion strategy and performance-first technical development.
The best of both worlds.
Exactly. They ensure the website isn't just a digital business card, but that it actually acts as your hardest working 24/7 salesperson.
So what does this all mean? Bringing this all together, if you are dealing with highly proprietary software, a brand new SaaS product, or deeply complex back-end routing, yes, you still need to pay the premium, endure the timeline, and invest in traditional hand-coded development.
Right. It remains absolutely essential for those extreme use cases.
But for the vast, vast majority of businesses out there, the e-commerce brands, the service providers, local agencies, mid-market B2B companies, this modern visual approach isn't just a cheaper alternative to custom coding. It is objectively the superior choice for return on investment, speed to market, and taking back control of your own content.
Definitely.
Especially when the execution is handled by experts who actually understand both the underlying code and the psychology of conversion.
It allows business owners to stop fighting with their technology, right?
Yep.
And start actually using it to scale their operations.
And, before we wrap up today, looking at this whole evolution brings up a really fascinating broader point. As these visual tools become incredibly sophisticated, and as we look at the horizon where artificial intelligence might start completely automating the raw coding part of web development, It leaves us with a wild, lingering question about the future of the industry itself.
It really does, because if the physical mechanics of building a site become entirely frictionless and automated by software, will the future definition of a web developer have less and less to do with memorizing computer languages?
Right. Will they even need to code?
Exactly. Will the job entirely shift to understanding human psychology, behavioral design, and the subtle nuances of how a user interacts with the screen?
That is an incredible thought to chew on. The code essentially disappears into the background, and all that is left to differentiate your business is how deeply you understand the human mind on the other side of the screen. Think about that the next time you log onto your own website. Look at your digital real estate with fresh eyes today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.